Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector here, and I made a video earlier talking about the different perspectives on the prices of retro games just being too high and too expensive. And in that video, I got a commenter who basically said that in this current market, now is the time when you should be buying all of the more rare and expensive games because people are going to be more willing to discount those games. They're going to be more willing to sell them at a cheaper rate because no one really has the disposable income to spend money on really expensive games. So whenever we're in like a down economy or anything like that, now is the time, if you have the means, to pick up some of the more rare and expensive games. Now, me personally, there are just some games in my collection that I never want to have to buy again, which is probably why I'll never sell them. And I'm going to be going over 7 or 8 games that I just never want to have to buy again. Batsugun is not one of the 8 that I'm going to be sharing with you, but it is definitely a runner-up of games that I never want to have to buy again. I believe they're going to be releasing, if they have not released this already, they're going to be doing like a remaster of this game or like a port of this game to the Switch. I think one has already been ported over. But I think I don't know if there's been an English release for it yet. I know there's a Japanese version. I don't know if there's an English version yet. But this game is getting ready to get a re-release, and that's the reason why it's a runner-up. But to get an original copy of Batsugun for the Sega Saturn is difficult. For one, you're not really gonna find a store here in America that sells this game like that. And if they do, they're probably going to charge an arm and a leg. So if you want it, you're going to have to order it, and you're going to have to order it from Japan and like deal with, long shipping times and so on and so forth, and hope that whoever you're buying it from is going to send you a genuine copy, with a genuine disc and all that. So this is just definitely a soft runner-up for a retro game that I never want to have to buy again. But I'm gonna go over another 7 or 8, just of some games that I never want to have to buy again. So the first one is going to be my copy of SWAT Cats on the Super Nintendo. So I was looking for this game for a really long time. This is basically an action platforming game with the main characters being from the notorious 90s kids TV show SWAT Cats, of course. That was a really cool show. I only actually watched a few episodes of SWAT Cats, but it came out about during that era in 90s cartoons when what is it called, anthropomorphic, where they turn animals into heroes. So you had SWAT Cats, you had Street Sharks, you had Ninja Turtles, you had the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, you had the Biker Mice from Mars, you had the Battle Toads. I mean, any kind of animal that they could turn into a superhero, they did it, and they did it with cats. And they turned them into SWAT Cats. This is a Hudson Soft game, so it's got really good graphics for sure, but there's nothing super special about it when you play it. But it is a fun game. I'm not going to hate on it. SWAT Cats is a cool game, but the biggest reason why I would never want to have to find or buy this game again, because at least when I was looking for a copy, finding a copy with a decent label and an authentic label was very difficult. Like, my label is authentic, but as you can see, it's got some damage there. It's got some wear and tear. I would almost rather the wear and tear on an authentic label than have like a reproduction label. So this is just a tough one to find in good condition. Obviously, if you find it in complete in box, it's going to be an arm and a leg. But this is just one that I'm not really trying to have to buy again. So SWAT Cats for the Super Nintendo. So that's one. The next one is going to be an RPG. So Vanguard Bandits. This is a Working Designs RPG on the PlayStation 1 that really caught my eye because of the way the view of the game shifts once you're actually in the middle of a battle. You kind of enter these like kaiju style battles, where you're just these massively large like swordsmen that you're just battling it out. It's actually pretty cool. Like, as you can see there, like, these battles just look really cool. And then when you're not like in a battle, it takes on kind of like this isometric, like 2D kind of art style. So very interesting RPG. It is a Working Designs title. This is another one that's kind of rare on the PlayStation 1. Definitely pricey on the PlayStation 1, and I actually was able to get this in a trade. This is back when I was doing a lot of trades at a retro game store, about an hour from me, and they had this there, so I definitely went ahead and took advantage and picked up this copy of Vanguard Bandits, and it was in really good condition too, like darn near mint, and it has all of the discs and all that jazz. Another game that I never want to have to buy again is Giga Wing 2 on the Dreamcast. Now, I do have Giga Wing Part 1 on the Dreamcast. I was able to get a sealed copy of that game. I can't remember where I got a sealed copy of Giga Wing from or how I got it. But I do have a sealed copy of Giga Wing on the Dreamcast, and I was able to find a mint condition, complete in box copy of Giga Wing 2. And I want to say that this was another trade. I was able to pick this one up on trade. Yeah, Giga Wing is a very cool shoot 'em up on the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast is home to actually some of my favorite shoot 'em ups of all time. And while I do think Giga Wing does a good job, or Giga Wing 2 rather does a good job in terms of just like the gameplay, and it's kind of like that 2.5D art style, but it's real clean because it's Dreamcast graphics. The it's the music. The music in this game just really throws me off. It's not that like electronic, jazzy, like, you know, sounding shoot 'em up music that I'm used to from games like Ray Storm and Ray Crisis and Mars Matrix and, you know, Darius, and just, it's not that heart pounding music. It's got this very orchestral feel to it. It's kind of weird. I don't know. But Giga Wing 2 is definitely a cool one. It's just so stinking rare. It's hard to find it complete in box. And if you do, say goodnight, because this is going to be an extremely expensive game. So this is one that I definitely would not want to have to buy again. All right, and put that right there. And then next up, this one I definitely got on a trade. This one I picked up when I traded in a ton of just like, you know, mid-level games at a retro game store. And this is the mighty Final Fight on the NES. This is definitely one of the most expensive NES games, at least in my collection. I know at one point this was like a $300 NES game, which is saying a lot for an NES game because NES games, there's not very many NES games that are that expensive. But this is actually, I believe, the part one to the famous Final Fight game that we know about on the Super Nintendo. This was Final Fight before Final Fight was Final Fight, and this is the mighty Final Fight, and it's actually a pretty cool game. The graphics are decent for an NES game. It's a beat 'em up. It's a cool beat 'em up on the NES, and when you play it, in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like one of the River City beat 'em up games. That's how it looks anyway. But definitely a cool one on the NES, but not one I would have to buy. I would want to have to buy again if I was starting a retro collection. I would not want to have to try and find this game because it's just so doggone expensive. All right, next up, this is a cool one, Elemental Master. This one is definitely a nostalgia play for me. My brother definitely had this game, played this game a bunch. I watched him beat this game. I watched him throw the controller in frustration many a time playing this game. But this is not a game that I would want to have to try and buy today, especially if I was trying to get it complete in box, because Elemental Master, for one, is just an expensive game, and then two, like even my manual is a little bit janky. Finding a very clean copy with a clean manual is just tough, and if you do, good night. The person selling it is probably going to be asking anywhere between $350 and $400 for it if it's like mint. So glad that I have this copy. Would not want to have to be trying to find it again. But if I absolutely had to play this game, I would just pick up a Sega Genesis Mini 2. And this game is on that mini console along with a bunch of other really cool and expensive Genesis games. But this is definitely not one I would want to have to buy again. And it's basically a shoot 'em up. It's a top-down shooter. Only the thing, he's not flying. He's actually running. But it's really cool. You get cool like magic weapons, and like it's definitely a cool one. One that I would recommend you play. Even if you don't like shoot 'em ups, give this one a try. It's definitely a good one. Elemental Master. Okay, next one up here. Definitely don't want to have to find this game again. Metal Warriors on the Super Nintendo. Now, my copy, I did have to get one of those like aftermarket style cases for it. And I do have ambitions and hopes of completing this. I do want to find like a box and, a manual and complete this. But this is Metal Warriors. I found, even though like the cartridge, and actually this cartridge just started doing this. Like when I first picked this up, like this cartridge wasn't, the two-tone wasn't there as prominent. I don't know if it's like oxidation. I don't know what caused that. The motherboard is authentic and the label is authentic. It's just did this discoloring thing. If you know what causes this on Super Nintendo games, please let me know down in the comments below. I'd be really interested to know what causes something like that. But this is an authentic copy of Metal Warriors, and I would love to complete it. Finding a complete copy of this game is definitely in the thousands. And then just even a loose card copy of this game is 400 and up. But this is probably neck and neck for me with Hagane. This game and Hagane are my two favorite Super Nintendo games just because of how advanced they are, how detailed they are, the graphics, the probably not so much the music. I'm not a huge fan of the music of this game and Hagane, but just the gameplay, the full use of all the buttons have a function. It just feels so advanced. It feels so ahead of its time. And this is just not one I would want to have to find again, because finding a clean copy of Metal Warriors is very, very tough. But definitely a cool one to have. Just would never want to have to pay for it again. So that is another game in the collection I do not want to have to buy again. All right, second to last game we've got here. Futurama on the PlayStation 2. Now, I never watched this show a ton. Like, I wasn't like a huge fan of this show. I think this was one of those Adult Swim cartoon shows that were kind of like more mature, too mature for little kids. At the time, I wasn't really like super into that. But I remember there was a time where I brought a bunch of games into a retro game store to trade. I probably brought in over 100 games. And I had a lot of store credit, and I don't really like keeping a tab at retro game stores, especially if the game store is like far from where I live. And this store was far from where I live. And I didn't want to have a tab. I just wanted to like burn up all my store credit at that time. And they had this clean, super clean copy of Futurama just sitting in there, very clean manual, very clean disc. And so I definitely burnt about, I think at the time it was like $275 worth of store credit on this game, added it to the collection, and it's been here ever since. I've played it a little bit. I've definitely played it a little bit, but it's definitely one of the cleaner PlayStation 2 games I have in my collection. And it's definitely a rare one. Trying to find a complete in-box copy. Finding this game is easy. Finding it complete in box in good condition is very difficult. So I would not want to have to look for this to be completing my PlayStation 2 collection at this point. Just not something I would want to have to do at all. Last but not least, this is Sega Saturn game here. This is Batman Forever. Now, this is a sick version of Batman. This is like an arcade beat 'em up version of Batman, but the graphics are kind of like those Batman Forever graphics. It's not like the one thing that I don't like about this game is that they didn't make it like in a 2D sprite based way. I wish this was like a 2D sprite based type of game. Instead, Batman is done up the same way they kind of did him in Batman Forever. Kind of the same way they do the characters in Mortal Kombat. And he even kind of has the same movements. It's kind of like the similar movements too. But what makes the game cool is that you get like these power-ups and you can do these kind of like super moves throughout the levels. And it's still fun. It's definitely fun. I would say that this game is definitely harder to find on the PlayStation 1 and a lot more expensive on the PlayStation 1 than it is on the Sega Saturn, because the Sega Saturn version I think is like $200 maybe, $250. But I know at one point that PS1 version was like $500. It was really tough to get that one. So nevertheless, in either case, I would not want to have to find this game on either console, neither the Saturn nor the PlayStation 1, just because it is one of those high demand games and it's going to run you a pretty penny. And so that kind of does it for me. That's my list of games that I would never want to have to buy again. Let me know what games you have in your collection that you would never want to have to buy again. I'd be interested to know, It's the Y2K Collector. Hopefully you had a great Sunday. They said it was supposed to rain this weekend, but the weather turned out beautiful. So hopefully you got to step out and enjoy it. That does it for me. I will catch you during the week. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.